Hey there, students, and it looks like somebody in the chat there is praying for a score that is above 2. Sharinja, hopefully you will make a score above 2. So let's go ahead and, we've got a lot of great people over here in the YouTube chat. We're also on Crowdcast. If you go to crowdcast.io/Tom Richey, that is going to be where you can sign up for salon reviews. You can join the Corona class where we're asking questions. Okay, so to ask questions and sign up for salon reviews and the art of Euro. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, you're certainly welcome. I love all of you watching on YouTube, but if you really want to participate in this thing, go to crowdcast.io/Tom Richey. Stella, Big Beast Baller, I love y'all too. Okay, Lena, let's just go ahead and say you'll score a 5. I can't guarantee that, but you will score a 5. Anastasia, you're scared. A lot of people are scared. Okay, but now those of you on YouTube, feel free to stay on YouTube, but feel free to also come over and join us on Crowdcast. Now, I'm going to be streaming now. I'm going to be streaming again tomorrow, more than once. Okay, so I'm going to be on this channel. I'm also going to be on Marco Learning's YouTube channel. Okay, so youtube.com/Marco Learning. Make sure, because I'm going to be doing some streams there. Okay, so make sure the first thing I want you to do now is subscribe to Marco Learning's YouTube channel. I'll know if you do, because right now it says 2.7K subscribers. We want to make sure that we've got a lot more than that by the conclusion of this. So make sure that we are subscribed to Marco Learning's channel, because I will be streaming from there tomorrow afternoon. Okay, so we've already got an AP Euro review session at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and an AP Euro day of review session on Marco Learning's channel. Okay, so the morning of the exam, I'm going to be doing the annual with Richey. That's going to start at 10 a.m. Okay, so that will start at 10 a.m. On exam day. Okay, so 10 a.m. I will be on my YouTube channel streaming live and publicly. At 1:00 p.m. I'll be on Marco Learning's channel, and I will be doing lunch with Marco. You can set a reminder. Okay, so if you are subscribed to Marco Learning's YouTube channel, you can set a reminder. I will also be on Marco Learning's YouTube channel at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. That's Tuesday. So I've got 2 broadcasts on Marco Learning's channel. So make sure that you are subscribed so you will get a notification when we're going live. Okay, it looks like they picked up about 30 subscribers. Let's get some more. Okay, now also we've got some free practice tests available at marcolearning.com. Okay, so make sure that you go to marcolearning.com and you've got some access to free practice tests. If we go to free resources and we see the drop down menu practice test, there is a practice test for AP Euro, and then we've got 9 more subjects. I thought I clicked on it, maybe I didn't. Okay, so free practice test available at marcolearning.com. Also, something that's not free, but it's cheap: Romulus European History Review. Okay, Romulus Euro, available at the App Store for $1.99. This is a handy little trivia app. Okay, it's nothing too complicated, but on the DBQ, a lot of times you find yourself struggling for outside evidence. And so trivia games are a very nice way, just a little quiz app, just to make sure that you are working on the things that you need to work on. It's something that you can do, a way you can study that doesn't involve writing a DBQ. The writing format is important, but if you don't know the content, you're screwed on this exam. So let's go ahead, go to the App Store, the Google Play Store, and pick up Romulus Euro. It's a $1.99 app. If it works for you, then give it a good review. I'd love that. And so just something where you can go in and on your phone. There was one time I was at the airport and it was exam season, and there was a guy in line that was actually on the Romulus app studying for AP Euro. And I was like, that is crazy. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And so that was pretty awesome. I posted it on Instagram, which by the way, at Tom Richey, I will be shouting out to new Instagram followers, and will occasionally be shouting out as well to people who are following my friends at Marco Learning. So make sure that you are getting, you're subscribing to Marco Learning's YouTube channel so that you see these free public streams that we're going to be doing tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. Eastern, and then lunch with Marco at 1:00 p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be starting very soon, and you can make sure that you set reminders. Now, I will also be broadcasting on my channel tomorrow. I will be here tomorrow night at 8 p.m., same time as this broadcast, and then, of course, the annual Breakfast with Richey broadcast. Now, again, in order to ask questions, crowdcast.io/Tom Richey, okay? And on this, when you go to crowdcast.io/Tom Richey, we're live now, but also note that we've got a salon review at 10 p.m. that's limited to 20 people, okay? Only 30 people, sorry. Not 20 people, 30 people. Only 30 people. This is a small group class session. Everybody gets their questions answered. And then tomorrow, we've got a premium session tomorrow afternoon, The Art of Euro. And that's at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's something that would benefit you. I'm going to go through all the art movements. So there are some those two are premium broadcasts, but I'm going to be broadcasting quite a bit over the next few days. So, whether you've got any money you want to put into this or not, I'm here for you. Okay. And so are my friends at Marco Learning. Let's see what we've got here on Marco's channel. Let's see if we got them 100 more subscribers. Okay, so I think we got them about 50 more subscribers. So I'm looking forward to seeing people there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead. We've got several questions on Crowdcast, all right? So as far as that goes, oh gosh, y'all are, that makes sense. Y'all would ask the questions that oh my goodness, I hate this stuff. As far as that goes, y'all are torturing me here. So let's go ahead and think about this now, Julia, when it comes to absolutism and constitutionalism. Okay. So when we're getting into that, what are the most important topics to know? I think that it's not necessarily just the important topics to know, but also knowing a few topics in depth. Now, of course, you can't really get into absolutism without getting into Louis XIV. I think that, absolutism, understanding Louis XIV, that is something that is very important. And as far as that goes, the more you understand, the better, but it would be better to understand one absolutist in depth than to just know the names of 5 different absolutists. So when I think about this, I think Louis XIV, the Fredericks of Prussia, and of course, my man Peter the Great in Russia. Now, I don't tend to focus a lot on Austria, but of course, somebody can know a lot about Austria. So it really depends on the DBQ topic. Now, one thing that we want to note here is that I am getting some feedback, it seems like on Twitter, that the students who took the AP government exam today, that there were several prompts that were just randomly assigned. So it could be that we're not looking at one DBQ topic, but we're looking at several forms of the exam that are circulating, maybe at least 2 or 3, okay? So with that, understand that it's entirely probable that not everybody will be doing the same DBQ. So we don't want to necessarily talk about, the DBQ topic. Yeah, you don't have to know everything, okay? So Ella, when you say you know nothing, LOL, I know nothing about Austria. That is, I don't know a whole lot about Austria. One of these days I'll learn a little bit more, but I would say Louis XIV, the Fredericks of Prussia, and Peter the Great. Now, Louis XIV, we have his palace at Versailles. He's known for his ability to bring the nobility into line. Okay, so he's keeping the nobility in check with this palace at Versailles. He builds this palace, and he's getting people to visit him at this palace. Okay, so he's getting people to visit him there at his palace and using that to control the nobility. So that's something that is very important in terms of using his power to control the nobility where they had been. Absolutism is about trying to bring about an end to this feudal system where all the nobles exercise a lot of control. Also, we want to understand, I've got a video that's titled Foundations of Absolutism. Okay, Foundations of Absolutism, where we talk about what these people had in common. So first of all, absolutists, they are not summoning representative bodies. So Louis XIV, the Fredericks of Prussia, and Peter the Great, none of them are summoning representative bodies. And that's something that's very important, that Louis XIV never called the Estates General the whole time that he was the King of France. Now then, the Fredericks of Prussia, they put together the best of the most efficient military. Basically, when Peter the Great, who is westernizing Russia on the Prussian model. So we want to understand about Peter the Great, westernization and warm water ports. Okay, W's, westernization, warm water ports. That's what we're dealing with Peter the Great. And so when he is westernizing his military, he's bringing in foreign generals, and his military is based on the Prussian model. Okay, so that's very important to note that Peter the Great also is procuring warm water ports through warfare. Okay, so he's using warfare to bring to expand Russia's economy and make Russia into a trading power with these warm water ports. And of course wants to westernize. For example, he doesn't want long beards, that the Russians historically wore these long beards. They wore long these long caftans, and these were things Peter was like, no, we want to adopt European fashion, European dress, European not big old long beards kind of thing. Made them pay a beard tax if they wanted to wear a beard. So those are things to know. Now, also to understand the rejection of absolutism in Britain, and of course in the Netherlands, where absolutism really was never an option because the Netherlands were never really a kingdom. This was really more of a federation of different groups here, that they had this very kind of bizarre constitutional system. But we want to understand that in England, they are trying to, that the Stuart monarchs are trying to rule absolutely, but that is being rejected. Now, somebody asked me, what's the difference between the new monarchies and absolutism? And I think that a distinction here, when we're trying to explain the difference between the new monarchies and absolutism, what we want to note here is that with the new monarchies, Henry VIII would be an example of a new monarch. The new monarchs were exercising control over religion. And so when Henry VIII proclaimed the Church of England, he was acting as a new monarch. But note, Henry VIII didn't proclaim the Church of England. He got Parliament to come in and put a rubber stamp on it. So Henry VIII called Parliament because he wanted Parliament to ratify that decision and proclaim him to be the supreme head of the Church of England. Now, let's look at Louis XIV. Okay, when Louis XIV decided that he was going to revoke the Edict of Nantes, Henry, okay, I was thinking Henry IV, his grandfather, who had given out the Edict of Nantes. But when Louis XIV decided that he was going to do away with the Edict of Nantes, he didn't call the Estates General and get them to ratify it. Louis XIV's like, look, one king, one law, one faith. So when we're talking about absolutists in general, we're talking about these rulers that don't answer to a representative body. These rulers who are completely uninhibited in their in their absolutism. Those of you who are watching, just to note, our salon review that's going to start at 10 p.m. Eastern, that currently has 16 people in it, which means there are 14 spots left for this small group session. Now, the Art of Euro, that's going to have as many people in there as as want to be in there. That's just a $10 buy-in. But just make sure that we've got the salon review that is happening at 10 p.m. limited to 30 people, currently at 16. All right, so as far as that, I would definitely counsel you to think about who's your favorite absolute monarch. Y'all go ahead and tell me in the chat. Who's your favorite European absolutist? Okay, let's see who's popular in the chat. Okay, so let's see here. Who is your favorite absolutist? Okay, so let's note here. So who is your favorite absolutist? Okay. And so we see here, is it Louis the 14th? Okay, so Louis the 14th of France, the Fredericks of Prussia, or Peter the Great. Okay, so Peter the Great, or James the First of England. We could say James the First, of England. Okay, so basically Peter the Great of Russia. Okay, so we see a vote for James the First, and so James the First of England / James the Sixth, right? So James the Sixth of Scotland. Okay, because remember, he was ruling both, he was wearing both crowns at once. So let's see, who's your favorite absolutist? Let's see what's going on there. Charles V, bruh. Charles V is not an absolutist. Charles V was there in the Reformation. And remember, we can't really call Charles V an absolutist because Charles V was a Catholic, but he had to consent to the Peace of Augsburg. The Peace of Augsburg, which said, whoever reigns, his religion. Now, those of you who want to join us in the crowdcast so that you're able to participate in polls, go ahead and join us here. I'm going to put a link here on the YouTube chat. Okay, so I'm going to put a link to crowdcast in the YouTube chat. And we have gained about 60 subscribers for my friends at Marco Learning. I'm going to be going, oh, actually, wait, I just put that in the crowdcast chat. They don't need to know where they already are, okay? So as far as this goes, going into the YouTube chat, somebody's already pressing F to pay respects. Hope y'all aren't talking about your score. Okay, I just put something into the YouTube chat. All right. So with that, moving on. Okay, so thinking about this, as far as this goes, the commercial revolution. Okay, so one thing a lot of people are asking about that, which this is one of those. I'm like, oh my goodness, don't make me talk about that. But y'all are making me talk about it. So the commercial revolution. What we want to understand is that in 1450, Europe is largely an agricultural economy. Okay, so we're starting to see an economy that's going from being based on agriculture to more based on commerce. And when we think about the commercial revolution, the rise of global markets, one thing to think about, especially in these constitutional states like Britain and the Netherlands, what we're thinking about here are joint stock companies. So we want to think about like the British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company, that you start to see that there are investors. Okay, so the British and the Dutch are the first to put together these companies with investors that are creating colonies, and these colonies are for-profit enterprises. Now, another thing that we want to note here is you have the establishment of the Bank of England. So we start to see central banking in terms of this. And so Britain is, of course, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but you also see the commercial revolution. Now, in the Netherlands, which somebody's telling me to talk about the Dutch Golden Age, I'll go ahead and get started about that. In the Netherlands, we see at that time, we know about the Industrial Revolution, but there is also what some historians have called an industrious revolution. Okay, so for example, I've been putting in between AP Government, APUSH, and AP Euro, I've been putting in 12-hour days. And the thing is, why do I put in 12-hour days? Well, especially when the European travel ban looks like it's going to be extended another month. It's not like I'm going to be able to go anywhere. Why am I working so hard? But here's the thing, that around this time in early modern Europe, it was especially prevalent in the Netherlands, where they're willing to work harder so that they can have things. And so that we see the Dutch are some of the first to catch on to this industrious revolution, that if we go back about 500 years, the average person, if they worked 6 hours in a day, that was a lot. Okay, so they had a lot more leisure time. Some of y'all probably have leisure time right now thanks to Corona. I'm not in Europe, but I hope to be at some point because the tickets are cheap. I've got a $100 ticket to Amsterdam for next week, but if the travel ban's extended, I'm not going to be able to go. Courtney D13, P Diddy 56, and Christina S. Thank y'all for the recent Instagram follows. And then we've got Emma Rose, who is a recent follower there. All right, over here it looks like in birthday town. Happy. Oh, actually, that's it's not your birthday. All right. So as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, but happy birthday. Whenever it is your birthday, happy birthday. All right. So yeah, whenever everybody's birthday is, happy birthday. So we've got Rashab, we've got Diana and Noah and Avery. Thank y'all so much for the follows. Okay, so glad to see that. And it looks like Avery might actually be from Stanton College Prep. If I'm not mistaken, that's what it looks like to me, is possibly Stanton College Prep, if I'm going to if I've got this correct. Or at least somewhere from Jacksonville. There are a few schools there in Jacksonville. Looks like we got some mutual friends there. So thank y'all so much, Allison Nelson and Marty Kovacs. Thank y'all so much. So as far as going into this, when we're talking about the commercial revolution, we want to see these things that are happening. Now, another thing that happens is the price revolution. Okay, so we're talking about, yeah, Florida's in the house representing tonight. And so the price revolution, one thing to understand about this is the age of exploration in the Columbian Exchange, they bring down the price of luxury goods, like, whew, but then generally prices start to increase. Now, I would say that the odds of your AP exam score being based exclusively on this, or nearly exclusively, are probably pretty slim, okay? Because these get into concepts that don't stick with a lot of people, even me. This goes into some pretty complex economics. So glad to see the Florida gang here. Now, as far as the Dutch Golden Age, while we're talking about trade, okay, while we're talking about European trade, is that the Dutch were able to, they pretty much established themselves in the 17th century, the 1600s, as the preeminent commercial giants of Europe. The Dutch, who were in this little bitty area in 1648, they finally get their independence. And this is the Dutch Golden Age that, they fought for independence from Spain, and they become the preeminent traders. They had the lowest shipping rates. They were some of the first people to really start, Adam Smith in 1776 published The Wealth of Nations. And a lot of that was focused on a lot of the Dutch policy, that they weren't so concerned about regulating their economy as just letting it be. And they were undercutting shipping rates. And Amsterdam was the commercial capital of Europe, the shipping capital of Europe in the 17th century. Now, the Dutch also had this very hodgepodge government. I've got a video titled, "What is a Stadtholder?" that I talk about basically the position of the stadtholder, who wasn't a king. When William III of Orange comes and reigns as King of England, okay, and Aubrey's still here. That was quite a light spree yesterday, Audrey. She found something that she had not liked, and so with that, going through here and seeing what we've got there. Lots of great people here. So the Dutch Golden Age, you've got the stadtholder. William of Orange became King of England, but he was not the King of the Netherlands. He was the stadtholder of Holland, Zeeland, Utrecht, Gelderland. I love the Dutch like G, that's like Gelderland, Utrecht. So if you want to say the Treaty of Utrecht right, you would have to say the Treaty of Utrecht. Okay, that's how the Dutch say it. Thank you so much, Estella Rowson and Bren Cronin and Jared. Thank y'all for the recent followers on Instagram, Julia Marie and Dylan. So the Dutch Golden Age also produced a great deal of art. I've got a video on Dutch Golden Age painting. And the Dutch, another thing about them, we think about this industrious revolution that we're talking about, the commercial revolution, that the Dutch were willing to pay for paintings. Like, the Dutch will work a little bit harder, because I, as a middle-class Dutch person, would like my portrait painted, or I would like to own a painting. And so, you see that Dutch Golden Age art is largely, a lot of it's painted for middle-class people. And we have these, genre paintings and, things that, like the girl with the pearl earring that, people want to be painted, and they're willing to pay for that. So now another thing about the Dutch Golden Age is the Dutch were very much ahead of the game when it came to religious toleration. That the Netherlands, when you saw the 80 Years' War, where you see the Dutch revolt against Spain. And so with that, you saw that there were Catholics and Protestants. Like the farther north you go, it's kind of like the Holy Roman Empire. The further north you go in the Netherlands, the more Protestants. Now, Belgium, where people speak Dutch, a lot of Belgians speak Dutch, and that's their language. But Belgium, you have mostly Catholics that speak Dutch, also in the southern part of what is today the Netherlands. But you've got Protestants and Catholics who share the same language. So, now, of course, in Amsterdam, it's not like somebody would have set up a Catholic church or a synagogue in the middle of the 17th century, but nobody was bothering Catholics or Jews in Amsterdam who were engaging in private worship. Now, that's, of course, another thing when we're thinking about the Peace of Westphalia in 1648. One of the things that the Peace of Westphalia accomplished was the Peace of Westphalia is recognizing not only Calvinism as a religion that can be chosen by rulers, but if people are worshiping privately, if people are worshiping privately, they're not going to be harassed. So you've got here the freedom of private worship, that is, really becoming the norm in Europe, because you even think about the English Civil War is going on concurrently with the last phase of the 30 Years' War. So we want to make sure that's happening. Now, also, I'm going to be shouting out not only to people like Madeline. So she's got a whole thing going there. With lots of letters, but I'm also going to be shouting out to people who are following my friends at Marco Learning. So make sure at Marco Learning on Instagram. Okay, so let's see what we've got next with the questions here. So women from 1450 to 1914. So here are a few reflections about women. So a few reflections about women during this time period, from 1450 to 1914, basically the whole course. And speaking of the course, thank you, my friends Gavin and Marin, for signing up for the Salon Review tonight. Looking forward to seeing y'all there. So when we think about women in the Renaissance, that the Renaissance, there's a great scholarly article that you may be able to find online. Was there a Renaissance for women? And one thing we want to note here is when we're looking at Renaissance humanists, Renaissance painters, we don't see women coming up here. So, when we look at Renaissance humanism, it's really more of a boys' club. Now, also, I've got a couple of videos on the Book of the Courtier where Castillon is talking about, Castillon in the Book of the Courtier is talking about, basically how a man should act and how a woman should act. So in my videos, I've got a two-part video about the Book of the Courtier. And the second part is talking about the courtly lady, where Castillon is saying, here is how a woman should act. And of course, my friend Talia is following Marco Learning, Reagan, W. Fabian, Cat Hip, Madeline Probst. Some of y'all I recognize from my account, Derek Barrega. Clemens is, and then Haley Perk. Thank y'all very much. And then, wait. Oh, this thing's not, so let's see. Ashur Kamal, thank y'all very much for following Marco Learning. They've got a lot of really funny stuff that they're posting as well. So I think that y'all are going to laugh at a lot of the jokes on that account. So with that, women are not very active in the Renaissance, that you see that women are being put in these roles where they are expected to be silent. They are expected to have these very meek characteristics. Thank you very much, Kaylee, for the Instagram follow. All right, so going from there, let's fast forward to the Reformation. Now, the Reformation led to an increase in literacy in Protestant countries, especially because Protestantism is based on the Bible. So we do see that women are taught to read during the Protestant Reformation because they need to know how to read the Bible. Okay, that is important. So we see this increase in literacy during the Protestant Reformation. Now, in the Industrial Revolution, we want to keep in mind that a lot of women, because their fingers are more nimble, they are working in a lot of these textile factories in the early years of the Industrial Revolution. Now, of course, they're working some very long days until the passage of the 10-Hour Act in the 1840s. But before we get to the 1840s, let's back up a little bit and let's look at the beginning of the feminist movement, okay, during the French Revolution. Now, the French Revolution was not a feminist revolution by any means, but it is the beginning of modern feminism. Now, when we do that, though, we want to talk about, now keep in mind, at crowncast.io/Tom Richey, I am going to be doing a broadcast on the art of Euro tomorrow, and that's going to focus on European art movements, okay? So that's going to focus on European art movements, and let's go ahead and take a look at a painting by Jacques-Louis David, The Oath of the Horatii. This is one of my favorite paintings as far as AP Euro, because it's showing us neoclassicism. It's showing us Jacques-Louis David as a neoclassicist. Now, again, I'm going to be going in depth into art tomorrow during the Art of Euro broadcast. That's a $10 premium broadcast. And I'm going to go really in depth into art there. Okay, so going into that, what we see here, we see Rousseau. To understand Rousseau and his view of things, and especially this idea of separate spheres for men and women. In Emile, or On Education, Rousseau said that a man should be educated to be a man, a woman should be educated to be a woman. Men and women are different. Okay, that was, that's something when you think about the Enlightenment, that is something. Now, part of that was based on, Enlightenment, looking at the science of the time, but then some of that is also predicated on traditional folk beliefs. And so with that, we see that the three brothers Horatii, this is Jacques-Louis David, a neoclassical painter who is, we see here this neoclassical painter who's got, now these are not fascist salutes. Are they Nazis, Walter? These are Roman salutes. Now, the three men are basically getting ready to go into 3-on-3 combat with Rome's enemies. We see that these men are patriots, Republican patriots who are submitting to the general will. They are willing to lay their lives down for the Republic. And then we see here that the women are over here. Now, notice that this woman here is cuddling with her children. She's holding her children. The women are all sad. The women do not have the emotional constitution to be able to go into the public sphere where the men belong. So the women, according to Rousseau and according to a lot of people at the time, they belong in the domestic sphere, raising children and making their husbands happy. Rousseau said that's basically why women exist. Feminists are not fans of Rousseau. Now, feminists are fans of Mary Wollstonecraft. Okay, so Mary Wollstonecraft was someone who wrote, now at first, Mary Wollstonecraft wrote A Vindication of the Rights of Man. Okay, so A Vindication of the Rights of Man, where she defended the French Revolution against attacks from people like Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke was what you would call technically a liberal conservative. Edmund Burke had some liberal sympathies, but Burke also, when he saw that what was happening, like he believed that liberalism had come to, Britain, had come to England over time, over a long period of time. And he felt like that the French were doing, too much too fast. And so he criticized the French Revolution. I don't know what Sierra Petrossi thinks about the French Revolution, but, Edmund Burke didn't like it. He thought it was too much too fast. And Edmund Burke was not surprised by the reign of terror and the death of Marie Antoinette. He saw that the French, they were trying to do very quickly what the British had done over hundreds of years to establish a constitutional monarchy. So Mary Wollstonecraft Mary Wollstonecraft was someone who wrote first A Vindication of the Rights of Man, defending the French Revolution, but then later Wollstonecraft wrote A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, okay, A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, where she says, look, now that I've written A Vindication of the Rights of Man, I am going to write a vindication of the rights of woman, okay, the rights of women, like Mia Kerwin, who just followed me on Instagram 3 minutes ago. Thank you so much. And we've got, let's see, Arava Patel and Satvik and Natalie. Thank y'all so much for the support. And we've almost got, remember, tomorrow at 3 p.m., I'm going to be broadcasting live, a free public broadcast on Marco Learning's YouTube channel. So remember to, go ahead and subscribe to Marco Learning's YouTube channel so that you'll get a notification about that. So then we want to note Mary Wollstonecraft and also Olympe de Gouges, who wrote, basically the Declaration of the Rights of Woman and the Female Citizen. Now, we saw the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen, and Olympe de Gouges says, what about the Declaration of the Rights of Woman and the Female Citizen? And she advocates for redefining marriage. We look at the French Revolution was partly inspired by Enlightenment principles. And so Olympe de Gouges, now keep in mind, I've got a whole series on women in the French Revolution. So you can see where I've got, Wollstonecraft versus Burke. We've got Olympe de Gouges. So I go into the French Revolution from the perspective of several women. That's available on my YouTube channel. Y'all make sure y'all are binge watching tonight. Don't forget to watch the ads. Okay. Help me pay for that $100 flight to Europe, which I may or may not need. We'll see what happens to their travel ban over the next few days. It's currently set to expire May 15th. They're talking about expanding it to June 15th. So Olympe de Gouges, who is writing, Declaration of the Rights of Woman and the Female Citizen, she advocates for no-fault divorce, like basically that, that the idea of marriage. Now, note that before the French Revolution, there was no, there was no marriage there was no divorce. There was marriage in France. There was just not divorce. And so there was no divorce in France. So we see here that, that France, was a Catholic country. Okay. So if Ella Madden wanted to get a divorce, if she lived in France under the old regime instead of in New York City, then she would not be able to get a divorce because France did not allow divorce. The Catholic Church, even today, does not condone divorce. And so with that, we see that during the Reign of Terror, they introduced a no-fault divorce law, like basically to where a woman or a man could sue for divorce for any reason and be granted it. Now, Napoleon, under the Napoleonic Code, Napoleon, which was the first set of laws for all of France, okay, the first set of truly national laws for France. In the Napoleonic Code, divorce was allowed under certain circumstances, but for example, in the case of adultery. Now, a man, if his wife was being unfaithful to him, according to the Napoleonic Code, he could sue for divorce for any, it's just she was unfaithful, that's it. Now, for a woman to sue for divorce, her husband had to bring the mistress into the home. So it was, it was kind of expected under the Napoleonic Code that a man was going to be unfaithful to his wife, but a woman was expected to be unfaithful to her husband. Now, note here that the Napoleonic Code's divorce guidelines were no less generous than any law code at the time. So we do want to note that while Napoleon rolled back some of the advances in no-fault divorce that had happened under the Reign of Terror, then he's not when we look at the standards of the time, it's not repressive. But we do see that women were not treated as full equals under the Napoleonic Code. So with that, we want to note that that's going on as well. And of course, at the same time, as we're going into the 20th century, we see the women's suffrage movement, which is led by people like Emmeline Pankhurst. Okay, Emmeline Pankhurst is always a good person to know if we have a DDQ on women or women's suffrage. Emmeline Pankhurst, it would be very good to know something about her. Okay, she was a prominent British women's rights activist and suffragette. And so, when you go to her Wikipedia page, there's a photo of like her being like forcibly carried away by the police. Women who were, campaigning for suffrage were often subjected to force feeding. And they would go on hunger strikes in prison, and they were subjected to force feeding in certain cases. I mean, really gruesome stuff. So women, what we need to note is that during and after or slightly before World War I, we start to see women's suffrage. So women's suffrage is kind of starting, and then all of a sudden Archduke Franz Ferdinand gets into a car and it's all over. Okay, so for most Western countries, women's suffrage happens during or after World War I. World War what? Like it never happened, right? Neither one of the world wars happened. APUSH gets both world wars. We get neither of them. What's up with that? What's up with that? All right. So I'm going to remind everyone that, we've got, if you want to be here, upvoting questions, come join us in crowdcast.io/Tom Richey. Okay. So make sure that, y'all are, coming over here. The chat's moving very, very fast. I'm trying to, but then again, you can also remember you have the option to join us for the salon review later on. So I'm looking forward to that. So far, we've still got 13 spots left in tonight's salon review, which is a small group session that is limited to 30 people or less. Okay. So, Mikey, basically the price revolution, I was getting into that earlier. The Columbian Exchange results in a much lower price for luxury goods, okay? But then we start to see that the price of everyday goods start to tick up. I don't really see the price revolution being the subject of the DBQ. And if it is, then everybody's in trouble. But basically the price revolution, remember, age of exploration, prices go down, but then prices for everyday goods start to kind of tick up during the price revolution. Not one of the more appetizing things to think about while we're studying for AP Euro. And speaking of studying, remember my Romulus app, Romulus Euro, is available at the App Store and on Google Play. That is, go to the App Store, look up Romulus Euro, an inexpensive little trivia app. And let's check out, remember, we've got free practice test at marcolearning.com, free resources, practice test. There is a practice DBQ on the English Civil War that would be helpful for you, I believe. And then, of course, we've got the salon review, and let's see how many subscribers we've got on Marco Learning's YouTube channel. All right, so we've got looks like about 70 people have subscribed. Remember, I've got a couple of free public broadcasts that I'll be doing on Marco Learning's YouTube channel. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Remus Lupin. Why is somebody saying Remus Lupin is the worst? I kind of like Remus Lupin. Okay, so the War of the Roses. Okay, well, actually, wait, the English Civil War and the War of the Roses are two different things. So I'm glad we got to clarify that, Sage. I'm glad that we got to clarify that so that everybody knows, so that Alexa Persico knows that it's different, okay, that we've got over at Mount High School, that the folks at Mount High School know that these are two different things, okay? The Wars of the Roses, okay? When we look at the Wars of the Roses, that was going on way back there, okay? So the Wars of the Roses was going on during the new monarchs, Henry VII. So basically, one of the reasons why Henry VII, Henry VIII's father, wanted to, the reason why Henry VIII's father, Henry VII, wanted to build up a monarchy. They'd just been through these civil wars. So understand why the Wars of the Roses are basically setting up the new monarchies. Henry VII, centralized tax collection, okay? So as far as that goes, just go ahead and just note that. Now, so the Wars of the Roses are setting that up. The English Civil War, I've got a four-part series on, four-part lecture series on the English Civil War. Short version, Parliament and Protestantism, okay? So basically, James I and Charles I, they were trying to rule absolutely, okay? So as far as that goes, they were trying to rule absolutely, and they were trying to not consult Parliament, and they were trying to enforce Anglicanism on everyone. So if Claire Janane were living in England at the time of James the First and Charles the First, and she wanted to be a Catholic, or she wanted to be a Puritan or a Separatist, a Calvinist, she wouldn't have been able to do that. Okay, so that would not have flown over that. So for one thing, the Puritans, we go back to the Elizabethan settlement. That basically the English Reformation is like the Diet Coke of the Reformation. The English Reformation, whereas Martin Luther was like, look, I have some new doctrines I want to introduce here. Only Scripture. Justification by faith alone. I've got some different beliefs from the Catholic Church. Henry, which of course I've got my mug here for Six the Musical, which I saw on Broadway like right before the quarantine, which when it comes back, make sure y'all see it. It was wonderful, a wonderful musical about Henry VIII's wives. It was just brilliant. So the English Civil War, that the Puritans and Separatists, these were Calvinist Protestants in England. They felt like the Church of England was too Catholic. Now, what you've got to understand here is Henry VIII wanted to divorce his wife. When Martin Luther first started the Reformation with the 95 Theses, Henry VIII, the King of England, actually wrote a tract where he eviscerated Luther. Okay, he insulted Luther. This tract was called The Defense of the Seven Sacraments. The Pope loved it so much, he called Henry VIII Defender of the Faith. This is a title that the Protestant monarchs of the UK still use today, Defender of the Faith. And so what we see here is that Henry just eviscerated Martin Luther. And, with that, Henry was a devout Catholic until he needed to get divorced. And the Pope said no. And Henry's like, you know what? I'm calling Parliament, and we are going to basically secede from the Catholic Church. Now, when Henry was king, there were really no meaningful, like Henry seized the monasteries because he wanted the money, but at the same time, there were really very few, if any, meaningful changes. So, for example, Henry didn't get rid of clerical celibacy. He didn't really change the service. Now, Edward VI, Henry's son, what you saw here was with Edward VI and Thomas Cranmer, that they are starting to Protestantize the Church of England. They get rid of clerical celibacy. So Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, takes a wife. And also he writes the Book of Common Prayer, which made the services of the Church of England a little bit different than the Catholic service. Not necessarily much, but a bit different. So the Anglican Church starts to assume its own Protestant character. But then Edward VI dies. Bloody Mary comes in. And Bloody Mary's like, we're going back to Catholicism. She's married to Philip II of Spain, who's like the arch Catholic, probably the most devout Catholic who ever ruled any, European state. Okay, so we've got here Philip II, and then Bloody Mary, who brings England back to Catholicism, a bit of barbecued Protestant. About 300 Protestants executed during leaders executed during Bloody Mary's time, including Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who was kind of the founder in a lot of ways of the Anglican Church. Let's give credit to Henry VIII, but Thomas Cranmer is the person who's really, reforming. And so when Bloody Mary dies, Elizabeth comes back onto the throne. She declares for Protestantism. She was Anne Boleyn's daughter, whereas Mary was Catherine of Aragon's daughter. Now, Elizabeth I declares for Protestantism, but she's got a conservative streak, okay? And also you've got to keep in mind that England has been through so much between Henry VIII's Reformation, Edward VI, Mary I. So the Elizabethan settlement was about having a church of England that was Protestant, but also retained some Catholic elements. Basically, it's a compromise where we're going to have a Protestant church, but it's going to retain a lot of Catholic elements. So with this Protestant church that we're seeing here, that essentially, this is a middle ground. They call it the Via Media, the middle way. Anglicanism, again, it's kind of the Diet Coke of Protestantism. But what happens with the English Civil War when James I and Charles I are very much into high church Anglicanism? Like basically, we want an Anglican service that looks very Catholic. The Calvinists, these Puritans and Separatists, they object. So you've got these disgruntled religious people, these Calvinists, and then you've also got Parliament Parliament's upset that James I and Charles I are ruling absolutely. So the English Civil War basically results in Charles I getting his head cut off. And then we see that Cromwell rules, which is basically a military dictatorship. The only people in Parliament during Cromwell's dictatorship are known as the Rump Parliament. They basically, it's kind of interesting, because there are, we've seen on, LEQs before, which you don't have to do this year, but they've asked people to compare the English Civil War and the French Revolution, that under Cromwell, you see that they have basically he's ruling as kind of a dictator, and the only people in Parliament in the Rump Parliament are his yes men, basically the rump, the leftovers, the hindquarters, so to speak. Now, after Cromwell dies, you have the Restoration, where Charles II, the Merry Monarch, comes in at that point. So we've got a little bit, but make sure we do know that the English Civil War and the Wars of the Roses, two different things. Okay. Thank you, Maddie M3223 for the like spree. CarolineRose.exe. Thank you so much, Caroline Cook, for the recent follow, and as well as Mia or Maya. It's a written test, right? Or a type test this year, right? So with that, we'll, thank y'all so much. And also, it's been a little bit since I've shouted out to Marco Learning's latest followers. Some of Marco Learning's latest followers. We've got Harnor, KT, okay, I'll just say, damn it, Diana. I'll just say it on that time. Lena Frankel, Emma Meyer. Sometimes people try to get me to say stuff that's not very nice. They'll change their Instagram handles, hoping I'll read it. COVID, of course, COVID, always a pleasure. And Daniel Thin Fin. All right, Thin Fin. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to our next question. Now, remember, I'm going to sign off in about 10, 15 minutes, and we will have our salon review at 10 p.m. We've got several broadcasts going on tomorrow. We've also got a salon review tomorrow night. So y'all are welcome to sign up for tomorrow night's salon review. We've got 3 of those. So just make a note of that. We still have some more spots in the salon review. So looking forward to seeing some of you there. So with that, let's see. And I keep getting curious if we can get Marco Learning over 2.8. Okay, still at 2.78. I think if we have about, 20 or 30 people subscribe to Marco Learning's channel, that's going to get them over 2.8. All right. So with that, okay. Yeah, Talia, let me go ahead and give y'all the latest on the AP exams. Now, it looks like about 2% of the people who took the AP physics exam had a hard time. They had a hard time with their exams today. Okay, so they had a hard time with the exams today. So with that, we want to note here that was, they had some issues. Now, from what I'm hearing, AP government went a bit more smoothly. Okay, so AP government allegedly went a bit more smoothly than the than AP physics. So we do want to note that AP government, it was pretty much, it seems to have been smooth sailing. Okay, so note that it seems to be smooth sailing on the AP government front for the most part. Now, one thing you want to watch, clock management. Any of y'all who are who are college football fans, you might remember when Les Miles was the coach at LSU, and he was infamous for bad clock management. Okay, clock management is very important here. So don't Les Miles your DBQ. Don't be a bad clock manager. So with that, what you want to think about is it's 45 minutes, and then that light starts blinking. Okay, that light will blink for 5 minutes. Do not wait till the last second to submit it. 45 minutes hits, finish your sentence or whatever, and turn the thing in. Don't let, my rule is there should not be a scenario where you are still working on your stuff at 48 minutes. Okay, so 45 minutes, we need to take that seriously, because, I heard from somebody today who just did not manage the clock very well, and he ran out of time. You know what's going to happen? Because he didn't manage the clock well, he's got to take it again in June. So he's not through with AP exams because he was a bad clock manager. So when it comes down to it, there is no scenario where I would, say, like, try to push it to 58 or 48, 49 minutes. When it's 45 minutes, finish your sentence, but treat that like a deadline. That red light starts blinking, finish your sentence and get that thing turned in, because you don't want to take another AP exam in June. You want to have this over with. So as far as that goes, once you see that 48-minute mark, I would get on there, with that. Okay, so as far as that, the College Board servers are going to crash harder than Germany's economy after World War I. They'd have to crash pretty hard. Now, one thing to note, according to the data that we've got, we don't see any evidence here. Okay, so we don't necessarily see any evidence that that most people are having problems. Okay, so based now, of course, this data is coming from the College Board, so POV, people who are known to make stuff up. I don't know if y'all seen my latest videos on cheating on the AP exam, but Trevor Packer yesterday said that, we've caught some people and we've invalidated people who were planning to be part of a cheating ring. And it's like, okay, Special Agent Michael Scarn, the exams have not even been administered. So anyway, make sure y'all are looking at the latest videos on my channel as well. Okay, so with that, we've still got, again, a few spots still. Looks like 18 people have signed up for our salon review tonight. Max is 30. So after 12 more people sign up, that is closed. We want to preserve that as a small group. So Talia, Talia, what's your Twitter? I don't even know your I don't know your Twitter. I should be following that because you've been supporting me and buying into the salon reviews and all of that kind of stuff. So definitely let me know that. All right. So with that, let's see here. So yeah, but as far as that goes, given today, because government had 400,000 test takers. Okay, so as far as that goes, 400,000 test takers, and we've only got about 100,000 in AP Euro. Okay, so that's something to note. I would not think in terms of that. Okay, gosh, that is came to me in a dream. Okay, that's a lot. So came to the number 2. Okay, so came to me in a dream. Okay, let's see if that works there. Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's see how many follows we can get for Talia here. So came to me in a dream on Twitter, which y'all are welcome to follow my Twitter as well. Show me some love there. Talia is mostly retweets, it looks like. Okay, so with that, I don't see me retweeted. How about that? Okay, why am I not being retweeted here? I think I'm a little bit offended now. All right, so as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen. So can I explain conservatism and liberalism? Okay, so conservatism and liberalism after the French Revolution. Now, what we want to note here is classical liberalism. One of the most important things I think about understanding European liberalism, and especially classical 19th century liberalism and 18th century liberalism, that it is not like American liberalism. Okay, so we want to understand the difference between classical liberalism and what we tend to think of as, liberalism in America. Okay, so when we're thinking about, liberalism in America, we're thinking about people who tend to like for there to be a role of government, social welfare, stuff like that, maybe concerned about the environment and that sort of thing. Classical liberals, what classical liberals are believing in is small government, a lot like American libertarians, that they just want as little government as possible, a laissez-faire economy. They want civil rights, civil liberties. They want legal equality for everyone, and they want the government to stay out of the economy, of regulating the economy, and also to stay out of regulating the press. So basically, as little government regulation as possible. They favor free trade. So when you think about the repeal of the Corn Laws, that was a liberal measure because it means less government control. The Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Liberals believe in natural rights. And so liberalism the classical liberals of the 19th century are basically the banner carriers of the Enlightenment. They're carrying the banner of the Enlightenment into the 19th century. Remember, Kant said, what does Enlightenment need? It needs freedom if it's going to grow. And I think I was quoting my Enlightenment rap verbatim rather than Kant's what is Enlightenment speech. But with that, as far as conservatism is a reaction against what are seen as the excesses of the French Revolution. That the French Revolution was driven by liberalism and nationalism, and conservatives saw those as threatening. Okay, conservatives saw liberalism and nationalism as threatening, as major threats to the stability of Europe. Conservatives want peace, stability, legitimacy. Okay, they wanted to see legitimate monarchs in Europe. That basically what you had seen in the French Revolution was a legitimate monarch. Louis XVI was executed. Okay, so he was deposed and executed, and the conservatives, they said, okay, this is not good. Okay, this is not good. The conservatives were not fans of what was going on there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we want to consider that. So conservatives, they're thinking in terms of we want to have stability within states and stability between states. Okay, so we want to have, when you think about stability within states, we don't want any more revolutions. Okay, and when we think about stability between states, what we want to think about in stability between states, we want to think in terms of that the great powers are not going to war with each other. So basically, the French Revolution resulted in a legitimate government being toppled, and it also resulted in a legitimate government being toppled, in addition to wars, incessant warfare. So they wanted to preserve legitimate government, and they didn't want to have wars. Okay, that basically a cooperation with the traditional social hierarchy. Okay, and so what we want to do here, let me think about this here. What do we want to do as a coupon code for? I'm about to offer y'all a coupon code for anybody wants to sign up for the art review tomorrow. Okay, so anybody wants to sign up for the art review tomorrow, you know what? Let's say David. Okay, so if you will, which David. Okay, so David or David. Okay, so David, you can have 50% off now that the Art of Euro is now, instead of for any of you who get it now, it's going to be down to $5. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and give a $5 coupon code. This is the Art of Euro. You can buy into that tomorrow for $5. Okay, if you use that coupon code David or David, right? Okay, so as far as that, that'll be David. So coupon code David. Okay, so as far as that, peep the link. There is the link for Art of Euro. Okay, so in order to sign up, now the Art of Euro, for those of you watching on YouTube, y'all can sign up for that premium stream. I just put the price down to $5 for those of y'all who are here right now, and that will I'll leave that up for about the next hour. Okay, I'll leave that up for about the next hour, so y'all can sign up for that. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me do a few more shout outs on my way out. I'm about to rest my voice because we've got the salon review tonight. Jackie Michelle sings. We've got a singer here. Okay, so Jackie Michelle is singing. All right. So as far as that goes, she is singing. I always think about, anytime I think about people singing, I think about Elf. I'm singing. I'm in a store and I'm singing. Thank you, Daniel Thinfin, for the follow on Instagram. Y'all have been great to me tonight. Now, tomorrow, my plans are, okay, to do some more reviews here. Tomorrow, I'll be broadcasting on my channel at 2:00 p.m. Okay, 2:00 p.m. I'll do a broadcast. 3:00 p.m. I'll be on Marco Learning's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Marco Learning. And then we'll have the Art of Euro at 4:00. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern, we are going to have the night before Euro broadcast. So that's at 8 p.m. Eastern. Now we've got salon reviews tonight and tomorrow night. Okay, and also another one on test day. You're welcome to sign up for as many of those as you'd like, but remember the salon reviews, it's a salon, so it only has 30 seats. So currently we've got 10 seats remaining. I've got 20 people that are going to be joining me at 10 o'clock for the salon review. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, remember breakfast with Richey, 10 a.m. on the morning of the exam, and then lunch with Marco is going to be at 1 p.m. on the morning, on the afternoon of the exam. It is always a pleasure. Thank y'all so much. I've enjoyed it, and I will be back. Now, remember, if you want to keep studying, Romulus Euro, okay, Romulus European History Review, which is an app that is available at the App Store and on Google Play. I would love to, coming from my POV, would love for you to buy, and I think that it would be helpful for you as well. All right, so with this, let's see, Tom, that would get 10 out. Okay, so can I post DBQs to get 10 out of 10? Okay, so what you want, all 4 prompts. I've got one for 1 prompt. Okay, give me a break here. Go to, for some information on the 2020 DBQ, go to my DBQ page, which is go to tomrichey.net, AP Euro DBQ. I've got some sample responses, and we'll go over those as we move forward. So thank y'all so much for this tonight. I'm going to be doing several more broadcasts. I'm not going anywhere. Make sure you're following me and Marco Learning on social media for more information. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will be back tomorrow. I'll see those of you, Talia and others, who are going to join me for the salon review. And then I'll be back tomorrow on this channel at 2 p.m. Eastern, Marco Learning's channel, 3 p.m. Eastern, back here at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I've got like 3 broadcasts tomorrow. So 3 in public that we're going to be here. Thank y'all so much. And it is always a pleasure.